Good afternoon, welcome back to Fujitsu Forum TV, where we continue to bring you live and exclusive coverage from events here at Fujitsu Forum 2019. Back end of day one, it is still a hive of activity. As we told you this morning, guests from over 80 countries have descended on Forum this year. It has been a real buzz around the place. Obviously, we saw the two keynotes earlier, which were packed full of insight. Our commitment to you, continue looking at those business and societal problems and exploring the answers that solve those challenges. Up next, we're going to take a look towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals, why they're important, what they're doing, and why it's critical that we support them. I'm delighted to say that we're joined by a man that needs no introduction, Joe Box. We saw him a few times yesterday, didn't we? Head of the Co-Creation and Digital Transformation Centre. But Beth Rowlands, Head of Talent and Skills at Fujitsu. Hello. Filippo.
Veglio.
Thank you. I've had a shocking afternoon pronouncing European names. I apologise wholeheartedly. MD for the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and Sogo Fujisaki. That was the one I was really worried about. VP CSR Sustainable Development Division Fujitsu. Thank you all for coming and talking to us. Beth, let's come to you first. I've been hearing so much about the Distinguished Engineer event that happened a few weeks ago in Berlin.
Yeah, that's right.
Lots of people talking about the scooters.
Yeah.
But tell us about the event and why it was important, because there'll be people that aren't familiar with the Distinguished Engineer Programme.
Yeah, sure. The scooters, well, other FDEs will have to tell you the inside scoop on the scooters. But the FDE programme, or Fujitsu Distinguished Engineer Programme, but I'll call it FDE for short for the purposes of this. So it's our internal programme to recognise our best technical talent, our brightest minds. We do that through a nomination process. We run it once a year. Some numbers, we have 270 of those, and they cross 14 different countries. We've been running it now, or brought it back, for around the last 7 years, and it's grown each year. So how do we recognise them? Well, first of all, they've got to be brilliant technically. That's kind of a given, an exemplar in their field. But more than that, it's no good really for us if they're then very siloed and they don't share their knowledge. So it's also about them being a really visible role model so they can influence the rest of our technical community. And it's also, of course, about their credibility, whether that credibility is externally for Fujitsu, so they're our recognised go-to experts, or whether it's internally credible, that they're recognised and valued across the organisation. So a little bit more, I guess, about what we do with them. So I guess the scheme runs in a few different ways. It's all about networking, collaboration, knowledge sharing. We did that through many different events. The main event and the main way we do that is by bringing them together once a year at a conference. This year, just a few weeks ago now, we did that in Berlin. We actually also invite a number of other people. It's a bit of a hot ticket now to get an invite to FDE conference. So we also invite other brilliant technical people that have done something fantastic during the year as our way of recognising. But when we've got such a concentration of fantastic minds, what better way than to set them a sticky problem when they're there? And that's what we did this year.
You'll find some content on the social channels that will help you understand what took place. You should go and check it out. I know James Millen, who part of the social media team, was lucky enough to be there, and he captured the whole event. Let's talk about the co-creation exercise. So I know it was based on the UN Sustainable and Development Goal 11. We're going to put a graphic on screen now, because I know Fujitsu are committed to not just Goal 11, there's a number of goals, but Goal 11 being building sustainable cities and communities. Why was this one chosen? And what role do businesses such as Fujitsu have to play in creating a more sustainable future? Perhaps, Fujisaki-san, you can help us understand.
Okay, SDGs goal is a shared view of the future, I guess the future we want. So Fujitsu would like to striving for the becoming a DX company. DX company is a company who can leverage ICT power to get actualize the betterment of the people and the community. So in that sense, we need a broader notion. But each individual company cannot solve the problem single-handedly. That is why we need collaboration. In that sense, we need shared views. That is why Sustainable Development Goal is a very important thing for Fujitsu. We are committed to actualize that type of thing. And a reason why we chose Goal 11 is that is one of the reasons is it's a very horizontal thing, and also more and more people is resorted into cities. That is why cities problem is getting bigger and bigger. So, for example, the problem in city is very horizontal. I would say that. It is from air pollution, mobility, and inequality, slum, many type of things. So Fujitsu's role is to get data and people together for the betterment of the sustainability and the betterment for the future people. So that is why we chose that type of a theme for our this year's program, and that is the importance of SDGs as well.
Filippo, it's obviously important delivering on this goal. How important is it we get the message out there about Goal 11 and the mission and getting people, businesses like Fujitsu, working collectively to help address these challenges?
Great question. I think there is no greater power than the power of these big business platforms to get messages out there about these goals being out there as a sense of direction where we really want to steer society towards at the level of the global community. 190 countries agreeing on a sense of direction. Here's where we want to head for a more sustainable world. How can businesses within that framework have a role, an opportunity, and ultimately also a responsibility as overall part of society? I think the opportunity part is where we, particularly from the World Business Council side, come in. On the SDG 11 alone, on overall urban transformation, we're talking about almost $4 trillion in business opportunities out there in terms of the needs that cities have for urban refurbishment, for rebuilding, but also for basically rethinking urban systems around mobility, around data, around how people move around. So ultimately, the opportunity message is what, of course, attracts businesses most, but also you can think about the risks. What are some of the risks about doing nothing with regard to some of these challenges out there at the level of climate, in terms of how it's impacting urban infrastructure? How much cost is it going to really take not doing anything? Is it actually going to be a bigger cost than actually undertaking action now? And what companies like Fujitsu can bring, in particular with the IT infrastructure, in particular with the co-creation model, is an ultimate, a fantastic platform for players to come together and address local challenges with a global mindset within that framework.
So Joe, I know you had a busy day yesterday with 90 people coming together. I'm reading 270 FDEs that you had to run through the co-creation workshop. That's got to have been challenging in itself, getting everyone coming together.
Yeah, it is challenging, but actually, if you think about it, there's no more important issue that it's worth dealing with a bit of complexity of a lot of people with. And actually, for me, it's quite inspiring. You know, Beth set out about the Distinguished Engineering Programme. If you think about the brightest minds that we have, surely we can make better use of them around some of the world's biggest problems. So it is absolutely amazing to see 270 of them working at full pace, meeting with people they don't normally work with. You know, they might have spoken to people previously via Skype, etc., or people they've never met before. Many different nationalities. We have people from almost every continent represented. And what they had was two things that really helped them. One was kind of this co-creation framework. You know all about human-centric experience design, which gives them a language that they can communicate with each other. And secondly, an absolutely shared motivation to be able to address a sustainable cities agenda. It's something we all care about.
Yeah.
So actually, logistically, there was some challenges there, but because we have 270 motivated people, it's perhaps one of the more rewarding sessions that I've ever been involved with.
I know we're still working through the outputs of that session, but I'm keen to hear from each of you on what you think the highlights were from the event. If we start with yourself, Fujisaki-san. I mean, what do you think was one of the highlights from the session in Berlin?
Okay. Fujitsu is a company to focusing on humans. So producing the human value is a very important thing. I guess a highlight of the program is focusing on human value in together with the 270 people, but that is very diversified. So one of the way to consolidate our effort is to set a common shared target. That is SDGs, especially especially 11s. So utilizing diversified way of thinking and also actualizing digital scale into the embedded with social value, that is the important thing. So consolidating all the effort into one direction is very important. That is a highlight I just feel from the program.
Fantastic. Beth, what stood out for you?
Oh, it's a difficult question. So, because there are so many highlights, to be honest, I think I have one of the best jobs in Fujitsu, and that my job is really to get the organisation out of the way of talent and just let them go and be brilliant and be creative. And just really, I love to step back at those events and just watch people connect, come together and come up with fantastic ideas that really inspire me and inspire them. It's fantastic to watch.
So, Colin, perhaps thinking specifically about one of the concepts that emerged, what was interesting for me was, we have these technologists who have particular skills in, very deep skills in particular technologies, but actually many of them came up with concepts that are about human behavior. They were about trying to incentivize better behavior with regards to sustainability, about people being more selective, about how they use transportation systems, about how they interact with the environment. So it was a combination, this beautiful blend of technology, but also thinking about what we as humans need to do. And it was really amazing to hear our engineers who, are brilliant technologists, really thinking through it from a human-centered perspective.
Beth, you touched on how inspired you are by what you observe. There'll be a lot of businesses watching this today thinking, okay, we could contribute towards this, we could possibly benefit ourselves in the same way you've just articulated. What would be your one message to those businesses who were considering getting on board with helping some of the goals?
Well, I guess first of all, I guess it's not to overthink it, really, just to start. So it can feel enormous and it can feel very complicated just because of the size of the challenge. My recommendation would be don't overthink it, don't over-engineer it, and just to start with something simple and basic with people together in a space that they can co-create in with some simple facilitation around it and just let them go. I think you can take too long to overthink how you're going to start, what you're going to do, how it's going to run. Just start, just get those people together and just start the process, and it will evolve as you go, as our scheme has, certainly for the last few years.
Filippo, final comment, what would you say?
Maybe just to build on what Beth was saying, I think caution against cherry picking, so it's 17 logos, 17 goals with a lot of details underneath, and actually focus, what are some of the goals that are really material to our business? What can we do on our own? Where do we need partners, and how can we start building that conversation, all the while keeping it very business, sort of pragmatic, around action, around innovation, about getting things done. I think that's the best way to go about it.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for coming and talking to us. If you have questions for any of the panel today, do get in contact. Hashtag Fujitsu Forum TV, whether that's Facebook or Twitter. We'll get you connected so you continue the conversation. Tomorrow we're talking to David Gentle. We're looking at the strategic vision of Fujitsu, and some of the UN goals will also feature in his segments. I think that's 8:15 tomorrow morning. That's an early one, but well worth tuning in. We're going to continue to bring you insight from Fujitsu Forum 2019. Next, we're casting an eye on financial services. The business process optimization and the role of automation is being spoken about quite a lot. Are we wrong in assuming that automation is replacing humans' jobs? Well, the message from Fujitsu is absolutely. They have a human-centric focus, don't they? This is about automating the tasks that don't need to be done by a human and releasing them to go and do great things. We're going to be hearing a lot more on that in our next segment. What time are we at? It's 4:15. We'll be live in 15 minutes, 4:30 if you want to tune in for that one. Stay with us, plenty more to come.